Hi, welcome back to another episode of ColdstreamRodshop. I'm Derek Fraser. In this week's video, we are going to be working on one of three 32 Ford Roadsters. For those of you who don't know, in the past we've worked on a bunch of other different cars, but it just happens at this point in time there's actually three 32 Roadster projects here. The body is not here for this one yet, but it's coming once we get some of the more work done onto it. And last week's video, we worked on the camera ladies, a 32 Ford Roadster. We started making the headers for the Y block. We've almost got them done for one side. The worst part is done. What's left now is I've got to make another Y here to come down and then shoot back towards the back of the car. Also, on Brenda's Roadster, as we're calling it, we picked up some more parts this last week. There's a 9-inch Ford rear end that's going to go into it. I think that's out of a 57 Fairlane, or if it's an old style 9-inch Ford. I think it's got the big Ford ends onto it and like 2-inch or 2.25-inch brakes. So that is going to be basically fitted into this frame. Now, one of the things I mentioned before, the gentleman I'm working with, he's been at this for years and years and years and years, got tons of parts. In some cases, in this particular case, we've got a Brookville Roadster frame that was set up for their suspension parts, but we didn't have all the Brookville parts that corresponded with it. So he has some Speedway parts, some TCI parts and stuff like that. So part of the process, it's not just assembling the painted parts. In this case here, some cases we have to shorten the rods and adjust stuff to put it in. So what I've already found out with this one is that I've put the rods in place here right now. We've measured them up, and actually these lower rods at least are 2 inches too long, which is no big deal. We'll cut those off. I've got the taps, so we'll go through that, and then we'll get these lower coilover shock mounts welded on that rear end. Additionally, I've got a master cylinder for the brake pedals. We'll get those in place. We get the pitman arm that'll have to go on. The tie rods aren't here yet. I've got ends for them, but we're working on that. So we're going to do a bit of work on assembly work on this and a bit of fitting. Then over here on the camera ladies 32 Roadster, like I said, we're going to carry on working out a Y for the bottom of that. But also over on this side, we also have to make the header up. I think it's going to be a little less work than the other one because I've got way more clearance, and I've also kind of fitted these in. Some of these pieces that I cut off the Chevy headers, they look as though they're going to fit in pretty good, and I'm not going to have to fight with them as much. But also, like I said last week, one of the challenges of putting headers on a Y block is that the spark plugs don't go in on an angle like they do on other cars, and the way it comes out, it's more suited. Ford actually put their exhaust manifolds up and out of the way so you can access the bolts and the spark plugs. In this case here, we've got to go down and out. So it still won't be straightforward, but I think it's going to be easier than the other side. Another thing, we get our gauges. So we've got a gauge panel here. One of the things I was waiting for, and I'll flip over to the other side here so the camera lady I can point it out on the inside of the car. When I made this dash, I put a piece of 3/4-inch square tubing along the bottom of the dash. The intention is to weld the dash in, but I didn't want to do that until I get the gauge panel. And I wanted to be sure that when I cut the holes and the hole here for the ignition switch, it didn't interfere with that. So once I've cut these holes and I'm happy with it, I'll be able to weld the dash in. The other thing, we picked up the emergency brake handle, so I'll be able to fit that in and actually finish off this last piece here that I did, I think, 2 weeks ago. So lots to do here. And then I guess if I'm bored between these two, I can probably go work on the international road. So there's a few things to do there. But I think with what I've said, lots to work on this week. So follow along and see where we get. Here's the next project, future project. I think it's the 58, isn't it?
I think so.
Yeah, 58 Ford cab. That's going to be a patina cab. Not going to work on it right away, but we had the opportunity to get the body delivered here now. So we're going to stick it outside, which is where it's been for a year or two. And then it's going to be a future project to basically restore the bottom of it and send it back on its way. those wheels and the 4x4s are yours?
Yeah.
Oh shit.
It's gonna stay right on it.
So just stay with us?
For now.
Okay, cool. Alright.
To make it easier for you.
I can bring it back whenever.
Yeah. I'll call you if I need it. I have no other predictions other than this one. Oh, eat the ones on the cab. Replace the green. No.
Anyways, if anybody needs anything moved from the Atlantic provinces up to Ontario, here's your guy riding Dirty Holland. We'll put a phone number and we'll do a little clip on the back. Great service. Give him a call.
And we have a chassis dolly.
And we have a chassis dolly. You haul everything from Ferraris to old cars, right?
Yeah.
So this is the project coming up. It's going to be a patina rod, not a rat rod, more of a patina car. It's a, best of my knowledge, it's a 58 Ford Custom. Looks like the floors are kind of bad in a couple pieces, but like most of the body, even around the windshield, is fantastic. Like it's a really solid cab. So the plan is for me over the next couple months or so, is when I find room in the other garage, I'm going to fix up the floor. They've supplied some panels in that, cab corners, and basically replace the metal but minimize the rust or patina removal, so to speak. And then it's going back to the owner. So this cab belongs to the same gentleman that owns the International Roadster. I've done quite a bit of work for him. He kind of wants this project to get kicked off and probably before the International Roadster is done, and then back up to him so that he can get working on it. But that's it. That's another project coming up. So today I'm going to work on Brenda's Roadster chassis. As I said before, we're going to bounce back and forth between a few things. The coilover shocks, we got those in today. The rear end is here, obviously I said that in the last episode. And the other thing that we determined over here was on the rear lower bars. 32 Ford has a 106-inch wheelbase. So what I've done is I've set up the brackets in the back with the rods, and I've determined that from the center line of this bracket to the center line of the front spindle over there. It's actually 108 inches. So I had the angle finder here so that these brackets are straight up and down. So what I now know is I've got to cut 2 inches out of the lower bar and then run my tap inside and clean it up. So I'll do that on both sides. The other thing that I've determined is that the width of these bars from this point to the other side is 38 3/4 inches, because that's the width between that bracket and the other bracket over there. So what I'll need to do is put these brackets here over on the rear end over here at exactly 38 3/4 inches on the outside measurement here. So I'm gonna dress up this area here. So I've put some tape on it right now so that the distance between this tape and the other tape over there is 38 3/4. So I'm going to clean some of the paint off of here. I'm going to set the pinion angle at 3 degrees set up here. And then that way, when I weld these brackets on, they'll be, oh, sorry. I don't have the camera laid here. When I weld these brackets on, they'll be perfectly perpendicular with the floor and 38 3/4 inches from outside to outside. That should enable me to actually put the rear end physically in the car. Then what we'll do is we'll put the coilover shocks on, and then we'll work on the upper brackets and see if hopefully we'll have the same situation where the bracket goes from here to the rear end and is either the right length or shorter, and I'll have to cut it off, but we'll find out here in the next few minutes. Here are the lower shock mounts all welded in. I've got everything all centered and the angles set 3 degrees in the pinion for the lower brackets, and right now I've dummied in the coilover shocks. And also for sanity check, I've got the pinion angle set down there at 3 degrees. This is not under load. If it's under load, the axle will come up a little bit more. So right now, when I measure the wheelbase, I'm at like 105.5, but like once the coils are compressed like another 1.5 inches under load, then we're back into the 106 range. So we're set up pretty good right now for the lower control arms and the coilover shocks. All that's left now to do is put in the upper control arms. So I've tentatively kind of mocked them in, and it looks as though they're about 1 inch too long too, but regardless, not a big deal. It's better to have them a little bit too long than a little bit too short. So everything looks square right now. Everything's going into place pretty good. We'll do a little bit, what I'll do now is I'll put the upper control arms in, weld those to the housing, and then I'll probably go around and do a little bit of touch-up paint for the little places, all the places that I've welded the lower, like the shock mounts and the control mounts onto the axle. So moving along here, we do have the upper control arms in place right now. I had to shorten them 3 1/8 of an inch. One of the issues was over here. This particular rear end had the vent tube right there, so I had to position the brackets slightly forward. Usually what I like to try and, what I try to do on the upper ones is position them on top of the axle. But at the end of the day, what we want to do is have both of those arms at the same angle, the same length. Ideally, if they can be parallel to the bottom bars, that's like if the top bar could be parallel to the bottom bar, that would be ideal. But at minimum, what we need to do is make sure that this pivot point measured front to the floor is exactly the same as that one, that both bars are the same length, and that both bars are at the same angle. And we have that now. So both of those brackets were welded in. I did a little bit of a paint touch up onto it, the top and the bottom, cleaned the axle up a little bit. There was a little bit of silicone on there, so we cleaned that up, got it nice and clean. Everything now is bolted in place. We still have 3 degrees on our pinion angle, so we're all good. And then I put the rear tires on top of the 1-inch spacers. Now, they do stick out too far. We know that. For now, it's a temporary thing, putting those spacers on to have the wheels onto it so that we can just roll something around the garage and roll it when we get the body. The rear axle itself, I think it's 57 inches outside flange to outside flange. So it's a little wider than what we normally use. Over on our Roadster, it's 57 or 56 and a half. But still didn't have to narrow the rear end. The gentleman that owns this, he has some tires that he's getting cleaned up, or rims and tires he's getting cleaned up that will ultimately go on this. So right now we have both front and rear suspension in. As soon as I get some more lug nuts, I am going to put the other 2 tires over there on the front end, and then we are going to make some tie rod ends and a drag link out of this DOM tubing. Gonna do that probably next. So we'll have everything tightened in over there, and then we'll start working on brake lines. In the meantime, I am going to go over, and while I'm waiting to get the lug nuts in and everything else, I'm gonna go and start working on the other header on the Y block on the Camera Ladies Roadster. So I've got a nice piece set up there now. We're gonna tack that in and put the next piece in. So there's the first step on the passenger side headers. Everything went well. I have good clearance for the 1 spark plug, and then over there I can get the spark plug wrench in, so that's all good, kind of like what we did the other side. I thought up until a couple minutes ago I was not going to have issues clearing the starter, but I just decided, just for basically double check, go get the starter that came with the AOD to Y block adapter kit and put it on there, and just be sure, because I don't want the headers getting too close to the starter. And one of the things I thought I was going to be able to do was actually just drop the headers kind of straight down there and go back. It kind of looks as though right now I'm going to have to take this part of the header and then tip it down. More than likely have this one come straight down and this one over. So anyways, that's part of the process. You got to double check, and if you're not sure, just double check again. But anyway, we're still moving forward. No, it's just not going to look the way I thought when I started out, but that's the way things go. Anyways, going to carry on here. I will take this part of the header and I'm going to drop it straight down, and then we'll work on the next 2 pieces here, and we'll show you how we progress. There is the second half of the passenger side headers. I decided to go back and down. So one pipe comes off of here, meets up, and it's not quite a Y, but I mean combined, and then shoots down there. So I've got to join those 2 right now on both sides. But on this side, on the passenger side, what I wasn't expecting was that the starter was going to stick out so much. So it became almost as complicated as the other side. Now, as you notice here, there's a dipstick on this particular block. This is a truck block. We're not going to be using that. So the dipstick actually is going to be in the front. So right now I've got access to all the header bolts. I can put spark plugs in and out, so I kind of accomplished the task here as far as making the headers. Now, as far as making a collector, I was messing around over on the table over here. I can actually take a piece of 2¼ inch exhaust pipe and kind of beat it around and kind of make a collector with it. My plan was to use 2-inch exhaust pipes, so I may just screw around with that a little bit. But the primary thing was to get the headers made so that ultimately I'd have something to all my clearances and everything else before I took the body off and started stripping it down again. So anyways, that's we've got both sides of the headers like 90% done. I'm not sure if I'm going to work on the collectors or work on more stuff on the 32 Roadster, because we're running short on video time. Got to get stuff for the camera lady to show you this week. So stay tuned. Let's see what else we can get done. So we didn't get much more done this week, I'm sorry. One of the few things we did get done after working on the headers was that the emergency brake handle came in. I was able to fit it.
and then basically dry fit the transmission tunnel over it. I didn't have to modify the transmission tunnel, so that's good. That's less work, but this will now fit in, which is what we wanted to do just before I take the body off and everything else. There's a few more things left to do to the body, but we'll talk about those on the next episode. One thing has come up. A few people have reached out to me and said, well, okay, you've got the brake pedal. Where are you going to put the gas pedal? So the short answer is it's going to mount on the firewall here, and the gas pedal is going to be right about there. So I'll take you over to the other garage for the 32 pickup and the Model A, and I'll show you what I mean. So here's the finished product, what it will look like ultimately on the 32 Roadster. We've got the brake pedal here and then the gas pedal here. The gas pedal pivot is mounted up on the firewall, and then there's a cable that goes through the firewall to the carburetor. Now you can buy these off of eBay. I think you can get them on Amazon. You can buy the really nice ones, which are the low car ones, but they all function really the same way. There's a pivot point up on the firewall, usually with 2 screws, and then a cable again that goes through to the carburetor. So the key thing is trying to keep like 3 to 4 fingers between the gas pedal and the brake pedal. That way when you tromp on one, you won't hit the other one, and then also get a comfortable angle later on. So we'll cover that again when we finish the 32 Roadster, but because people were kind of asking, okay, you get the brake pedal in, where's the gas pedal gonna go? Right there. So in this week's video, we covered building the passenger side header for the Y-block engine in the 32 Ford. I did not put a collector onto it where the 2 pieces go down into one, because the key thing for me making these headers is basically make them so that they clear everything. I can put the spark plugs in, put the bolts in, and also fit inside of the hood. So kind of accomplished all of that. I will finish off putting the collectors on later. And then when I go to put the engine in the car, when we're doing the final and doing basically the rest of the exhaust, that's when I'll finish that off. One reason is I'm not sure whether I'm going to make a collector, or I've seen there's a couple places where I can buy them, which go from 1.5 inches down to 2 inch. But anyways, we'll see how that sorts out. So like I said, passenger side exhaust header on the Y-block and a 32 Ford. We got the emergency brake handle in, and then over here on the Brenda's Roadster, we were able to get the rear end with the 4 links all set up. We kind of got the back tires dummied on. Like I said up before, ultimately these are a little wide. There's going to be some other tires going on that will actually sit closer in. We just need something to roll around for a while. A few more parts have been dropped off for us to work on. Gas tank is just sitting here for now. It's not bolted in place. So we'll finish up or do some more work on this next week, like brake lines and a few things like that. And then over on the 32 Roadster, I am hoping to get the dash welded in. I have a new steering drop that we're going to put in place of the other one there. I kind of went with a connecting rod style one. We'll get that in place. The ultimate goal though is over the next couple weeks to get everything done on this body so that we can clean it all down and put a coat of epoxy paint onto it. And then hopefully we'll also get working on the International Roadster. We'll get the deck lid and stuff in there. I'm going to try and work on that next week too. So anyways, that's it for this week on ColdstreamRodshop. Please like, share, tag, and subscribe. Some of your comments, and I'll catch you next week. Thank you.